The Health Fix podcast teaches you how to take charge of your health naturally by giving you the information you need to elevate your health.
Hello there, health junkies. Welcome to another episode of The Health Fix. I'm your host, Dr. Janine Krause, and in today's episode, we're going to be talking about libido and why not having one is not normal. There's something going on. And today I'm interviewing Dr. Renee Wallenstein. She is a double board certified medical doctor who has been working with women for over 20 years and has come to the conclusion that we all need a little help with figuring out that libido of ours. So today we're going to be diving into that, talking about Renee's Facebook group. We're going to be talking about Renee's one-on-one sessions and just how she can help you to get your libido back. And that's why she's coined herself the libidoologist, which is quite fun. It's a fun word that helps us to understand what she does and how she helps you to restore the libido. So let's jump into the podcast. Hello, health junkies. Welcome to another episode of The Health Fix. I have Dr. Renee Wallenstein on. She is the libidoologist, which I absolutely love that name, by the way. I can't wait to start talking about libidos because this is such a huge thing that so many ladies come to me talking about and like going, do you think I just don't like my husband anymore? Do you think we should get a divorce? What should we do? And I'm like, wait a minute, let's figure the hormones out first before we jump into divorces and things. So Renee, I'm so glad to have you on and dish all things about that libido of ours.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to chat.
So tell us a little bit about how the heck you came to focus on libidos.
Yeah, I have a huge background story, but I will condense it a little bit. I am conventionally trained as an OBGYN, so worked in that field for over 15 years. And 9 years ago, I had an injury. I broke my back after falling off a horse. And, I chased a lot of symptoms. I was incorrectly diagnosed with depression, which back then I thought, yeah, it sounds like depression because I had a lot of these weird symptoms of, I couldn't get out of bed in the morning. I had really low energy all day. I wasn't motivated to do anything, eat right, exercise, was gaining weight. I had no libido, all of the things. And come to find out, after failing the diagnosis of depression and how I failed is I failed 2 different medications. So I was like, maybe that's not the right diagnosis. And at this point I was still having back pain, chronic back pain, but then a lot of these other symptoms that the docs that were my colleagues are like, we don't know what to do for you. Like they essentially, I don't want to say they turned their back on me, but they ran out of options and they basically said, you're going to have to live with this. And that was not an option for me. And my deep down dark time in my life was when I laid in bed one night with my husband and said, I can't go on living like this. Like, I can't go on having all these symptoms. What kind of mom am I? Because I have twins and they were seeing their mom on the couch every day if I wasn't at work. So, and at this point, my scope of OBGYN practice was limited. I was no longer operating or delivering babies. So, I really had in my opinion, no purpose when it came to my work because I wasn't changing lives anymore. At least I didn't feel like I was. And miraculously, a functional medicine doctor came into my life and I didn't even know what functional medicine was. But I remember getting on the phone with her one night and saying, everyone else turned their back on me. Like, what do you got? Like, what do you have for me? Like, how can you help me? And she did. In one phone call, she not only pretty much figured out what was wrong with me, and we obviously confirmed that with some testing, had sort of a plan for me, although I officially saw her in the office about a month later. But she also said, why don't you come and join me in functional medicine? And I was like, what the heck is this functional medicine about? And as I'm on the phone with her, I Googled it and I was like, oh my gosh, this is really cutting edge science. This is like where you take the science you learned in medical school and apply it to get to the root cause of why someone feels the way they do. And just one phone call with this woman of like, basically like sifting through my symptoms and saying, really, like, I think this is what it is. And in a condition, it was my adrenals, by the way. I didn't even have I went to medical school and I'm like, what are you talking about? Adrenal dysfunction. Like, I don't have Addison's or Cushing's, which are the extremes of adrenal disease. But it made sense when I looked the symptoms up. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is me. And to think that I was actually going to have to live with that for the rest of my life, I can't even imagine. So in one full swoop, it's funny. I always tell the story. My husband went into the bathroom when I got on the phone with this doctor. When she came out, I go, all right, I have adrenal dysfunction. This is what I'm going to do. This is kind of the plan. I'm going to see her officially to solidify the plan, but I'm also going back and doing a fellowship in functional medicine, and I'm joining her in practice. And he goes, how long was I in the shower for? Because
just happened.
just had about half hour, my whole life changed. And this is how I make decisions. I now go with my gut, my intuition, like this is the right thing to do for me and my life and the care of my patients and now my clients. So I was actually in a brick and mortar seeing actually both men and women for 4 years. And the addition of a male patient was new to me because I only taken care of women. So that was a really fun time in my life just to see, men versus women and how we come in and what we what we tolerate and what we don't tolerate. And it's very interesting, the difference. Mm-hmm. And then this practice closed about 3 years ago now. And about 2 years ago, I'm just coming on my 2-year anniversary, I actually started my own online health consulting business. And so for a full year plus, I just did general women's health, talking about a lot of things like the adrenal issues I had and gut health and hormones and all of the things. But what happened is with the pandemic in 2020, the online health world, what everyone was talking about got really loud.
Yeah.
A lot of people were talking, and a lot of people were talking about the same things, the immune system, gut health, but when I sat back and said, what aren't people talking about? And what did I hear a lot about over the last 20 years of taking care of women was libido. And the interesting thing is, from my perspective as well, taking care of women with libido issues and men, as a matter of fact, I really figured out what worked and what didn't work. And it's obviously not the same for everyone, but we have to sort of start thinking outside the box when it comes to libido, that it may not just be testosterone, which is what I always thought as an OBGYN. And ironically, as an OBGYN, I would actually not even want to talk about it because back then we didn't really have FDA approved medications to use in women. There was one hormone replacement that was estrogen with testosterone. It was oral, meaning by mouth, and it killed the woman's liver, but hey, maybe it helped your libido. And that's all I had. And I really did not like to use it because I really worried about her health of her other organs.
Yeah.
While trying, and that's a key word there, trying to see if this would help her libido. And then when I got into functional medicine, I actually started to ask every single patient about their libido, and their jaws would hit the floor like, wow, a doctor's asking me about my sexual desire. What? And this is when I started, and I don't want to say playing, but practicing, because medicine is practicing. And people are different, and what works for one woman may not work for another. And the root cause of one woman's low libido may not be the same as another. So I tried a lot of different things, still a lot of hormonal management. And that didn't always work either. So that's when I started to scratch my head saying, there's more to this. So when I came out, was ending the 2020 year of being online and seeing everyone else talk about all the things and me sort of coming to the forefront of the line and saying, let's talk about libido, because women aren't talking about it.
Yeah.
They don't think they may think it's normal to have a low libido. And I was here to say, it's not normal. It's not because you're aging. There are reasons why it could be low. And if you want it to be better, there is help out there. And so, yes, I now call myself the libidoologist. It is my own word. And it's, the study of libido, because I continue to study libido and low libido. Because again, there's not a ton of studies out there looking at women with low libido and, that roadmap of exactly what to do for them. So I came up with my own roadmap of what I look at when I address a woman's low libido.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So let's talk about what you look at, because I think, yes, hormones are the first place that we would naturally go to. Of course, the adrenals, looking at cortisol, looking at signaling what's going on there. And I think a lot of people kind of the same concept, because it's not talked about other than in the alternative and functional medicine world about adrenal fatigue, adrenal imbalances, things of that nature. Otherwise, it's like you have Cushing's or you have Addison's, and there's really no in between or degrees of that. So what do you assess? What do you test? What do you look at in terms of lifestyle stuff too?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because I think there's a through line of every single client I work with and what we and it's usually not just one thing. That's a big takeaway from this, right? We are complex. We are women. I have to say for men, they are much more straightforward. They have one main hormone, and it's usually from the loss of that hormone that they have any dysfunction of their desire. women, again, we have a lot of moving parts. We have a lot of fluctuating hormones. And so we have to look at a lot of different things. But the through line for a lot of the clients I work with, there are three top ones. And then we sort of go after that. Number one, mindset. Like what doctor talks about mindset, right? But like, I find that you can't, your health, you can do everything you can for your health and working on your health. But if your mind is not in the right place, as far as how you feel about yourself, your ability to feel better, and how you view your body, how comfortable are you in your skin? Because if you are hating on your body, which I know a lot of women coming out of the pandemic are because of weight gain and such, are you really want to get naked in front of your husband, in the daylight? So, the lights off, make sure the lights are off so you can't see me. Men don't love that. Men they're visually stimulated, they want to see you. But if you don't feel comfortable, even with your spouse, significant other, what have you, that's a huge blow to the libido. And, and it's even like how you talk to yourself from the time you wake up to the time you go to bed, that sort of trickles down to your confidence and your self-esteem and your desire to be intimate. And so there's the mindset issue. Number two is relationship, like you said in the beginning when we started talking. And it's not that I find that the women I work with hate their husbands. That's because if I get on a phone with someone who wants to work with me and it's clearly that she has a dislike currently for her husband, I say, maybe you need more of a relationship counselor versus what I have to offer.
Sure.
Because that's the elephant in the room. But what I have been finding with all of my clients, and when we talk about relationship, is there is a lack of communication and what she wants and needs, and what he wants and needs. And a lot of times the men will get to a point where I hear this a lot with a woman saying, like, go to your doctor, get testosterone. There's something wrong. So she comes thinking there's, that's all she needs and that she's broken. Meanwhile, it's exactly, the communication part is key of what you need, not only in the bedroom, in everyday life. You have kids, you are doing it all. Maybe you had to move your business home, during the pandemic, and maybe now you're virtually schooling your kids and you're having to still grocery shop and make dinners and clean the house and all the things. He walks in the door after being outside the house for the day at work on his phone and goes and plops on the couch. And from his perspective, you look like you got it all under control. You've got it. You're Superwoman. And while I myself love to think I'm Superwoman and like to think I can do it all, at the end of the day, I can give myself my own little trophy in my head, but you're not going to get a trophy. You need to ask for what you want and what you need. And I find that it was missing for a lot of the women I work with in their relationships, as far as their expectations, even for intimacy, but their expectations from a day-to-day basis on how much time we spend together, or are you helping with the kids and how can you help with the kids or dinner, leading to number three, which is stress. Stress is huge. And yes, it comes down to cortisol and the hormonal issue, but it's also women, to be intimate, we have to get out of our head to get into the bed. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times we are thinking a lot about what are we going to make for dinner? The kids' lunches, are they packed? The kids' homework's done. Oh my God, now we have finals, the kids done studying for their finals, and we're coming into summer camps, and what am I going to do with the kids all day when I'm having to work? So all of the things. And not only that, even if you don't have kids, your job, maybe you're building a business, maybe you have to go to work. And I feel like everyone's jobs nowadays, they have so much more work than they're able to keep up with. They're thinking of what they have to do at the office tomorrow. So we can't be intimate and want to be intimate if we're all stuck up in our head with our to-do list and where we've been, what didn't go right, where we have to go, and we're not in the present moment. So there's a hormone called oxytocin, which is essentially our love hormone, our cuddle hormone. And oxytocin and cortisol are kind of on a teeter-totter. When cortisol is high, which is our stress hormone, oxytocin, the cuddle hormone, is low, and vice versa. Oxytocin goes up, cortisol comes down. So I always say, to the men that listen to me, ask how you can help, because there's no more. A huge turn on is seeing a husband, a significant other, helping the kids with homework, or making the dinner, or going to the grocery store for us, or on his hands and knees and scrubbing the baseboards, or whatever the case may be. It's different. Folding the laundry, making the bed, whatever. Yeah. And that's a huge turn on for a woman to say, oh my gosh, you're willing to help me. Like, one less thing on my to-do list is number one. Number two, a 20-second hug, without looking for anything in return, will actually increase a woman's cortisol, or not cortisol, I'm sorry, oxytocin. We don't want to increase her cortisol anymore. So yeah, and if we can sort of identify, like, if you feel stressed, it's one thing to run around saying, I'm stressed. But it's another thing. Okay, I feel stressed, and just being aware of what's stressing you out. Right. I mean, it could be your job. Maybe you can't find a new job, but what else can you do? What other stressors do you have that you can sort of start working on to help the overall stress picture? And where can you set boundaries, start saying no? Where can you ask for help from your kids? Maybe if you have kids like mine that are now teenagers, or a husband who, is really present a couple weeks out of the month. Like I ask him to do a lot that week. And so, just in an effort to decrease your overall stress level, in the hopes that we can get you back into the bedroom a little bit more, and really present in the moment, and not just showing up because you quote unquote have to. So those are the three big ones. And of course, nutrition plays a lot into libido, gut health. And again, a lot of it does tie back to hormones. But the difference is, how I used to address it is replete hormones, just give you hormones. And now it's more about, okay, well, is it a gut health issue that's impacting your hormones? And how can we work on your gut health so you are not what they call estrogen dominant anymore? Because there's a lot of estrogen dominance running around right now between, yes, the au natural higher estrogen in perimenopause in relation to our other female hormone called progesterone, but also a lot of the things like toxins, plastics are disrupting our estrogens and actually our testosterone as well. Fragrance, personal care products are huge on my list. A ton of fragrance in them that are disrupting our hormones, like things that women are doing every day that we can just bring into the light and say, just try, like, let's transition, start using, natural fragrance products, like with essential oils, get out the parabens and the phthalates and all of the things that are disrupting our hormones. So now we're just dealing potentially with what is happening in our body and not adding that onto our plate as far as causing more estrogen dominance and or a lower testosterone, because we don't have a ton of testosterone. That's not our main hormone. Yeah. And with that being said, we are more sensitive to it. But again, with that being said, we don't want anything to disrupt our testosterone if possible. So again, a lot of these chemicals that disrupt our estrogen also disrupt our testosterone.
And I think that's an important concept that you just put out there in terms of, it's not always hormones. Because I have a lot of ladies that'll come to me and be like, hey, I just need the bioidentical hormones. That's all I need. And I'm like, wait a minute, there's more to you than just replacing these things, because once you replace something, it's like taking a medication. We have to like clean up the massive, and same kind of thing with testosterone. If I give testosterone to women, I'm like, that can back convert. And now we got to figure that mess out. So it's important that this is addressed, that we're looking at it as all the picture, and especially the chemicals, because I think a lot of people don't realize what certain things are doing. And there's also some corrective lines of skincare that people are on that we need to be helping, maximize clearance of things if they need to take it to take care of a certain condition with the skin.
I agree. Yep. Yeah. So, it is multifactorial. And, when it comes to hormones, and I agree, some women, so when I used to work with men, and their testosterone deficiency, you have to ask, okay, I'll replete it to get you to feel better, but let's ask why. Like, why is I had, he was in his early to mid 20s. Yeah. He may have been 22-year-old male with a low testosterone. You have to start asking questions like, what is going on here? All the way up to men in, 50s, 60s, when a lot of times we will see a decline. But once again, even with men, like, what else are they doing in their lifestyle that's lowering their testosterone? And what can we do to remove that in addition to repleting something that's missing? So, I'm not always against, in thyroid, we didn't talk about thyroid, but thyroid's huge in there too. And, you don't always need a thyroid medication. Number one, there are a lot of underlying conditions that can be addressed, looked for before, such as autoimmune disease. A lot of docs, I would diagnose a ton of autoimmune thyroid when I was in the office. And I always thought it was a success when I got the woman before her thyroid really took a nosedive and she needed replacement. But I would say 50% of the time I was actually testing women who were already on medication and had pretty crummy thyroid function. And that was just kind of then trying to backpedal and like, okay, like let's clear up these antibodies so we don't destroy any more of your thyroid. So, autoimmune diseases and thyroid and huge impact on libido. So it is a bigger picture. And like, in addition to potentially repleting hormones, we can ask the question why. And again, sort of remove any of the insults that are disrupting your hormones that can be removed while we're repairing.
Absolutely.
And repleting. Mm-hmm.
So I know that you do a lot of one-on-one work, and we want to talk a little bit about that. And I think a lot of folks, when they're kind of going, okay, if I'm going to look at all the aspects of restoring my libido, where would we start first? Because some folks know that with functional medicine, we're going to be considering looking at the gut. We're going to be looking at, hormones, but what style of testing? Are we doing saliva? Are we doing Dutch test? Are we doing, regular serum? So give us the breakdown on what tests you like and what you might consider. And I know that everyone's different, but kind of the average person, maybe if you want to give us a breakdown.
Yeah. I mean, I could talk about what I am allowed to do in New York State because I live in New York and we are very restrictive when it comes to functional medicine testing, very restrictive, which is why I'm moving out of New York in about 4 years because I can't even do the Dutch test, by the way. It's not allowed. Back when I went into functional medicine, 7 years ago, I'd go to these conferences and learn about all this cool testing, including one, you can check the estrogen metabolites and I can see how you're breaking down your estrogen. I can't do that in New York, I can't. So I would only find out about this because I'd go to the reps from these companies and be like, oh my gosh, tell me about your test. And can I get some for my office? And they're like, nope, New York, we don't even want to talk to you. So essentially, there are, I had to practice a lot of empiricism, a lot of of things that I can't test, but I do recommend or prefer, I should say, salivary testing for hormones. Mm-hmm. And, with that being said too, sometimes functional medicine testing can be expensive. So there would be times I would just reserve saliva testing for such things as cortisol, and potentially just do the blood serum for hormones. However, with that being said, if I was giving a woman cream, that's not generally like a hormone cream, a bioidentical hormone cream, which is usually compounded. A serum level of hormones doesn't really adequately reflect how I'm repleting her hormones. I would definitely recommend saliva in that case. But for the woman who's not, who just wants, maybe she's perimenopausal, and maybe, she's making too much estrogen in relation to her progesterone, all the things we just talked about with trying to take out the factors that her own body's not making, and, balance that estrogen with the hormone I love, which is progesterone. That we don't talk enough about progesterone or how it's our, I love estrogen because it's the hormone that makes us beautiful women and plump skin and all the things, right? But too much of it makes us really grumpy and moody and we bleed too much and we're crampy and all the things. So versus progesterone, which, is our nice calming hormone. It's like the yin and the yang, it's our calming, and it's meant to balance the estrogen. And inherently in our perimenopausal years, we don't make as much progesterone. Our eggs are lower quality. They're just not, which is why there's always higher risk in pregnancies over the age of 35. It's just our eggs are getting older and they're just not making that progesterone like they used to. So my favorite thing, would be to supplement with oral progesterone, which is my favorite. And, that can absolutely be adequately followed by a blood test. So I really think it's, if a woman is getting her hormones repleted, definitely the method by which she's getting repleted, and it will determine the most accurate way of checking her hormones to make sure she is repleting them effectively. And again, there's a number on the lab, but there's also how a woman feels.
Yeah.
Her number may look a certain way, but she feels, like she's estrogen dominant. There's definitely symptoms of, again, a little moody, a little irritable. Her testosterone may look okay, but she's, feeling like she's getting more acne or her hair is starting to fall out. So there's the number on the test, but then there's definitely talk to the woman, talk to the client, the patient, see how she's feeling. And I think that's the biggest thing I learned. I always listen to my patients as an OBGYN, but I really And I say this in a loving way because I married to a doc at the hospital, and I used to be that person that I didn't have a ton of time to chit chat and listen to all of the symptoms. It's kind of like I had 5 minutes with a patient. I had to get to the root, like not even the root cause. I had to make a diagnosis essentially in the past and put a pill on it.
Yeah.
And, I didn't have a ton of time to dive into like asking exactly how she felt, or if she's having a side effect to a medication, like what are the side effects? What do versus what I do now? It's like, I really want to know how a woman feels, even when she's taking a supplement, like it's funny. Someone said recently, like, oh my gosh, you recognize that people can have side effects to supplements. I said, absolutely. Absolutely. Maybe I never had seen it before, but that's not to say that what you are feeling is not real, So just like medication, supplements have to be used cautiously, and are also can cause some side effects that are unwanted and unwarranted.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, no, it's a good thing to mention, because I find that the more adrenally depleted someone is, the more trauma that's been, in their body, things of that nature, the more sensitive they become to certain supplements, for sure.
Yeah.
And so it can be extremely tricky to figure out which direction to go when you have someone in that state. Same thing with what I call, cellular hypothyroidism too. A lot of those folks, it's like, whoa, okay, let's back up and go to some of the simple stuff. So I think that's really important to go into that.
Yeah. And I understand a lot of women, when they come to us, they just want to feel better now. Like they've been to a lot of docs who have been telling them they're normal, or they've been spinning their wheels. And, I think from a functional medicine perspective, it's just, I always say you didn't get here overnight. We're not going to get you better overnight. And I'd rather I always, with supplements, with hormones, I don't prescribe hormones anymore because of the way I work with clients now, but I will work with a provider. And there are a lot, they're not my preferred hormone replacement, but there are a lot of bioidentical, FDA approved, if you want to say that, medications out there. And again, the reason I say I don't love them is because they are fixed doses. We can't dose it based on what a woman feels and what her numbers look like, and titrate it accordingly. When you're kind of in that box of having to prescribe a topical cream or what have you or a patch to a woman, that's through a pharmaceutical company, then you kind of have to go into the box of the fixed dosages. So that's one of the downsides. And a lot of insurance companies do not want to cover the more natural. They want to give you the Premarin, the horse urine estrogens, which I do not. I'm very vocal that I do not like that. And the synthetic progestins, our bodies just don't know how to break those hormones down. So I always go, if you have to go away from the bioidentical compounded cream form, then definitely, look for a bioidentical hormone like an estradiol patch, or Prometrium, which is the name brand for the natural progesterone. But again, you have to kind of fit into the I keep saying diagnosis, the dosages that are supplied by these pharmaceutical companies.
That makes sense. Yeah, I think this is good stuff for folks to hear in terms of what a conventional doc might prescribe to help with repletion of hormones, compared to looking at a compounded version of things that functional medicine docs might go into as well. Now, in terms of your one-on-one, let's talk about that. Like, how does it look? How can someone work with you? How do you, schedule your appointments with folks, and give us the scoop?
Yeah. It's interesting. When I walked away from, 15 years in OB and 4 years in a functional medicine office, and again, it closed for financial purposes because functional medicine and a lot of states obviously is not covered by insurance. Is pay out of pocket. You can submit your bill to the insurance company, but again, you have to foot the bill initially. So, and it was a growing practice, but growing pains sometimes comes. You have to close. So, and unfortunately, we were the only one within. I don't know. I've seen patients from 3+ hours away. So it goes to show you that we were the only gig in town. But now, walking away from that, what I had to reflect on is where could I improve to get my clients the outcome that they're looking for? Because in retrospect and looking at the office, I would actually have women that started seeing me when we first opened the doors. Actually, my very first patient, right up into the day I closed, which was she's probably close to one of the last patients I saw, and she was still complaining of the same things. And, a lot of times she would come every 3 to 6 months. I think she was every 3 months. No, I didn't do that. And no, I couldn't do that. And so she didn't feel any, I don't want to say urgency because I don't want to put pressure on anyone, but there wasn't really a goal to get better because she would just come and see me every 3 to 6 months. I think it was 3 months to do her lab work. We'd see, where, and a lot of times it was kind of the same. She's like, yeah, I know I haven't been doing this, this, and this. So, I had to look at women like her and it's like, okay, where did I fail her? And part of it was the fact that I had an hour appointment with her. And I know that sounds amazing to a lot of people because they're like, oh my God, I have 5 minutes with my doctor. And I agree, because that used to be me as a GYN. You get, 5 minutes, you probably get 10 or 20 minutes. But yeah, I thought it was a lot of time too. But when you're going through somebody's blood work and you're only seeing them once every 3 to 6 months and you're going through a ton of blood work and I'm trying to explain the thyroid pathway and why this number is high and why this number is low and why this one's this way and all the hormones, the hour goes by really fast. So the last 15 minutes, I'm just going, okay, do this for this, do this for this, or this, grab them their sheet and out the door they go. And what I found is a lot of women would come back and say, hang their head at their next visit, doc. I'm sorry. I was just overwhelmed. There was just so much. I have a lot going on at home, maybe no support at home. They're trying to do this themselves. And I did 1 out of the 10 things. Mm-hmm. So what I found was that I was overwhelming women. And it was only because I was only seeing them every 3 to 6 months to keep the cost down. So how I've now designed my business is I literally hold a woman's hand on her journey. We talk weekly. And, I have busy current clients that are busy doctors that I'm trying to fit a healthier lifestyle into their busy without slowing them down too much. But again, raising awareness to where they need to get help as far as their health goes and trying to cope with their busy lifestyles a little bit better. But, so I actually literally hold their hands so as not to overwhelm them. So I can sort of drip in the things that we're doing throughout our time together so they stick. Because you and I both know, like when you're trying to start 10 new habits at one visit and they walk away and they're like, oh my God, that is so much. Like, and certain people can do it, but there's a lot of women that can't because in normal life, they're already really overwhelmed. Yeah. So, and it just becomes nearly impossible, or at least in their mind, to do all of this. So I literally talk weekly, anywhere from 3 to 4 times a month with my clients. Sometimes I give them a week off of me. We do testing. And again, I design testing based on the personality. Everybody's different. One of my current new clients is completely overwhelmed. So if I do food sensitivity testing on her, and say, you got to take out all these foods, that is going to completely put her over the edge. Yep. So we are starting with some nutrient testing first to see where her deficiencies are, because not every woman I work with opts for the testing and can afford the testing or wants to spend the money, even though I totally think it's worth it. Yeah. So I generally have to just use my, empiricism of what I've seen across the board for women as far as what they need in their bodies. But when we can do the testing, such as the nutrient testing, I can see where they're deficient in all of their nutrients, their B vitamins, magnesium, omegas, where, and how balanced they are. We do a gut health test a stool test to see how their gut is doing. Again, not as great of a test as outside of New York, but it's a good test. Probably my least favorite of all the tests, but nonetheless, it's pretty good. And of course, toxicity testing, because a lot of people think like, I don't have any mercury or lead toxicity. And it's like, oh, you'd be surprised. So we definitely test for that. And of course, the food sensitivity testing, because, not every food, I always say it's great when a food gives you some sort of gut symptoms that you're having a side effect, but not every food does that. You can have very, what do I want to say? Symptoms that aren't clearly identified with food, such as brain fog or lower energy, or, if you have the gut bloat and gas and potentially constipation or diarrhea, yay, we have some gut symptoms, but food sensitivities don't always present like that. So those are the 4, because I try not to go overboard with testing. And again, hormone testing, I don't replete it. So sometimes I ask that they get it with their doc and I'll look at it. And thyroid testing, especially, I still try to work with women with what they can get from their doc. The other question is what docs will actually do some of this testing that I want them to do, but
yeah, that is sometimes a struggle, but it is good information, whatever we can get. So
yeah.
Definitely.
So I work with them and what they can get and where they're at financially and emotionally and physically and all of the things to see how we proceed. Because again, not every two women are the same. Their treatment protocols aren't the same, how we address their libido. And again, yes, I talk about libido, but a lot of the things that can lead to a low libido are things I was talking about a lot anyhow. It's just we add on, let's focus on another thing that I know is bothering you, but you just don't want to talk about it. And again, a lot of times it's, and I just had 4 clients at once finish up at the same time. They all started the new year. And one is just, it was changing her job. Her stress significantly declined. I mean, she's got 3 kids under the age of 4. So of course we can't do anything with the kids, but communication issue, the stress issue, her libido through the roof. Another woman, it was menopausal symptoms, vaginal symptoms. We took care of that. It was a communication issue with her significant other. Actually, it was her husband, to find out that they both were on the same level when it came to libido. She thought her libido was low, but he was like, oh no, I'm fine with how frequently we're being intimate. And I'm like, not an issue. So it's really interesting, when you are addressing and working with women, just, you got to meet them where they're at, number 1. And number 2, everyone looks different in what you address first.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Sense. And the typical length of time that you're working with folks sounds like 6 months.
Yeah, typically 6 months. Lately, I've tried a few 4 months with the potential of tacking on an extra 2 months. And honestly, there's a lot of women that have done really well with 4 months, but I always like that 6 months at least potential. Again, if 4 months, if we were almost there, but not quite, we'll work a little longer together. And, and it's not to say that 6 months, I cut you off. If you need more time after that, then we continue to work. But I do find, having that set time with women, they really are motivated to make the changes. And by the time it gets me, actually one of my newer clients, she talked to me for the first time in 2019 when I first started my business, and she just wasn't ready. And I'm like, if you're not ready, we're not, you will come back when you're ready. And sure enough, she messaged me a couple weeks ago and said, I need to do this now. Like this, I got to a point and I said, if I get to this point, I'm calling Dr. Renee. She got to that point and now we're working together. So it's really got to be on their timeline, as well as like, okay, I'm ready to do this. I'm ready to make the changes. Even though there's small little incremental changes, you just got to be ready to do it.
Makes sense. Now, you also have a Facebook group. So
I do.
Folks can join that and kind of get to know you a little bit more and kind of interact a little bit there. Tell us a little bit about your Facebook group.
Yeah, it's just a general holistic health group. It's Happy, Healthy, Holistic with Dr. Renee. Again, I do have a passion for libido, but that group has been around for a few years. So I have had people in there right from the get-go that just, again, a lot of the things that we talk about can affect libido, gut health, hormone health, thyroid, stress. So yeah, definitely that is a free group. We're edging on 900 women strong, which is incredible because it's been completely organic growth. And yeah, it's been fun. And it's a fun little place to go and just hang out with women that just, they want to feel better. And they just want those little bits of information when possible to implement in their own life. So yeah. And I do have a podcast as well, a free podcast. It's a holistic health podcast also. So there's tons of free information. I'm very active on social media, TikTok, Instagram. So there's a ton of free information out there. If you're that woman that says, I just want to piece it together myself. And I get that because there's a lot of success stories out there of women that just listen to the little pieces and they're like, oh, yep, that hits me. That's me. They have those aha moments. And sometimes they hear something and that's exactly what they need to hear to take action on, implement, change, and voila, we're feeling better. So.
Yep. That's why I do the podcast. Definitely, we're helping folks to just get a little bit of information one step at a time. And if there is some obstacles, we've got folks like you, Dr. Renee. We've got other folks. And your podcast is called Love the Leap, right?
Yeah. Love the Leap with Dr. Renee. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So I will put that in the podcast notes at drjkrausnd.com. I'll also put your link to your Facebook group. Okay. We'll put in the link at your website. It's Renee Wellenstein, so WELLENSTEIN, yes.com.
Yep, drrenewellenstein.com. Yep.
Perfect. So folks, we'll put that all up there for you. You've got all the info, and I will get the links for TikTok and the Instagram and all the social, because it's fun stuff to have on board.
Well, if you have 15 seconds to watch a TikTok video, you might get something out of it. I am everywhere. I actually also have it's YouTube. It's all Dr. Renee Wellenstein across the board. So just Google, put Dr. Renee Wellenstein on any of the social media platforms. You'll find me. And again, it's just I have a blog, however you can digest information. If it's written, if it's on a podcast like we're doing here, I know that's a lot of my audience of women that we're multitaskers, right? We're on the go, we're walking our dog, we're, making dinner for the kids, we're listening to a podcast to help change our life. And so whatever that looks like for you, go get it, because it's all out there.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Renee, for coming on. I really appreciate it. And especially about the libido, because this is something that I think a lot of us docs aren't thinking about, and we're not adding it in, and we're not speaking about it. And maybe it's a little of that taboo kind of thing, but I love it that you're just going for it. So thank you for contributing to helping so many ladies out there to get their libido back.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, health junkies, I hope you enjoyed my podcast. If you want to continue the conversation based on what topic I'm talking about at any given time on the Health Fix podcast, head over to my Facebook group, Find Your Health Fix. It's where we are talking about what's going on in health, what I'm talking about in the podcast, and I love to answer questions there. So come hang out and join the conversation. And by the way, right now I have a free Manage Your Stress Naturally course that you can grab on my website at drjkrausnd.com, because so many people are stressed out right now, and really it has to do with the basics, your routines and simple habits that are messing you up. So head on over to drjkrausnd.com and go check out my free course on managing stress naturally. All right, folks, have a great day, whatever you're doing.
Subscribe, rate, and share info.